The massive space station hung in the void like a jeweled crown. Nexus Prime stretched for hundreds of kilometers, its gleaming towers and spinning rings home to millions of beings from across the galaxy. Today, the most important chamber in all of known space buzzed with activity. Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the corridors with steady steps. Her simple gray suit stood out among the elaborate robes and shimmering scales of the other delegates. She carried a small data pad and nothing else. After 73 years of membership, humanity knew these halls well. The Great Assembly Chamber could hold 10,000 beings. Today it was packed. Representatives from 47 different species filled the tiered seats that rose in circles around the central speaking platform. The ceiling showed a projection of space with stars twinkling like distant promises. Elena took her seat in the human section. It was smaller than most others, reflecting their junior status in the council. She nodded to the few other humans present, trade officials, military advisors, and scientists who had traveled here for this once-in-a-century event. The Great Reassessment happened every 100 years. Each species would present their contributions to galactic civilization. The council would then decide on new trade agreements, resource allocations, and political standings. For most species, it was a formality. For humans, Elena knew it might be something more. Chancellor Zix Thera of the Zephyrian Empire stood to open the proceedings. Her species looked like tall, elegant birds with silver feathers and piercing blue eyes. The Zephyrians had been spacefaring for over 10,000 years. They considered themselves the most cultured race in the galaxy. "We gathered today to evaluate our great alliance," the Chancellor announced. Her voice carried the musical quality that made Zephyrian poetry so famous. "Some have flourished. Some have contributed greatly to our shared prosperity, and some—" Her gaze swept over the human section. "Well, we shall see." The presentations began with the oldest species. The Ethereal Collective shared their advances in quantum computing. Their representative looked like a floating crystal that pulsed with inner light. When it spoke, the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Our calculations show 17% improvement in galactic communication networks. Energy efficiency has increased by 23% across all member worlds. Projected benefits over the next century total approximately 47 trillion standard credits." Murmurs of approval rippled through the chamber. The Ethereals always dealt in precise numbers and profitable outcomes. War Prime Krextal of the Kethvar Empire spoke next. His species resembled massive bears with armor-plated skin and 4 arms. The Kethvar were known throughout the galaxy as fierce warriors and tactical geniuses. "The Kethvar fleets have secured 12 new sectors this cycle," Krextal rumbled. "Pirate activity down 86% in patrolled areas. 3 attempted invasions by hostile forces completely crushed. The borders of Council space have never been more secure." More approving sounds filled the air. Security was always appreciated. One by one, the species presented their achievements. The Celestians had terraformed 6 new garden worlds. The Hegemony had built 3 new trade stations. The Crystalline Chorus had composed music that could heal mental trauma. Finally, Elena's name was called. She stood and walked to the central platform. The chamber fell silent. Even after decades of membership, many species still saw humans as the newest and least important members of the council. "Honored delegates," Elena began, her voice clear and steady. "Humanity presents its contributions to our shared civilization." She activated her data pad. Holographic displays filled the air around her. "Human engineers have maintained and upgraded infrastructure on 412 council worlds. We've improved efficiency of life support systems by an average of 15%. Power grid stability has increased by 22% on worlds with human technical support." The first display showed busy human workers in environment suits, crawling through maintenance tunnels and repairing delicate machinery. Most delegates had never seen these images before. "Human peacekeeping forces have resolved 68 conflicts through negotiation and minimal force deployment. Our casualty rates are the lowest of any military force, while our success rates remain among the highest." Another display showed human soldiers helping rebuild schools and hospitals rather than standing over conquered enemies. Human medical teams have eliminated 4 diseases that were considered incurable. Our cultural exchange programs have facilitated first contact between 16 previously hostile species. Human researchers have contributed to breakthrough discoveries in 12 different scientific fields. Elena continued for several minutes, outlining humanity's quiet but steady work across the galaxy. When she finished, the chamber was silent for a long moment. Chancellor Zixthara was the first to speak. "How practical," she said, and somehow made the word sound like an insult. "Humans certainly are industrious." War Prime Krextal laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "Maintenance work and peace talks. Is this what passes for achievement among humans? My warriors conquer star systems. Humans fix the plumbing." Several other delegates chuckled. Elena kept her face neutral, but her hands tightened slightly on the datapad. The ethereal representative pulsed with cool light. Human contributions calculate to approximately 3.7% of total council resources, despite comprising 12% of member population. This represents significant inefficiency in resource allocation. "Perhaps," suggested a delegate from the Merchant Syndicate, "humans would be better suited to a support role. Let the advanced species handle the important decisions." Chancellor Zixthara nodded thoughtfully. "The Council has grown and evolved over thousands of years. Perhaps it is time to recognize that not all members are equal in capability or contribution." The debate that followed was painful to watch. One after another, delegates spoke about humanity's limitations. They used words like primitive, simple, and adequate for basic tasks. Some were cruelly direct. Others hid their contempt behind diplomatic language. But the message was clear. Elena listened to it all without interruption. She took notes. She did not argue or defend. She simply observed and recorded. The final vote was 41 in favor, 6 against. Humanity would be redesignated as a junior partner in the Galactic Council. They would lose their voting rights. Their trade privileges would be reduced. Their people would be limited in what positions they could hold on council worlds. When the voting ended, Chancellor Zixthara turned to Elena with a satisfied expression. "I trust humanity will accept this decision with the grace that befits your nature." Elena stood slowly. She looked around the chamber at the faces watching her. Some showed smug satisfaction. Others appeared uncomfortable but said nothing. A few, very few, looked genuinely sorry. "The council has made its position clear," Elena said quietly. Her voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. "After 73 years of partnership, you have decided that humanity's contributions are insufficient, that our capabilities are limited, that our place is as servants rather than equals." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "Very well. The council has spoken. Humanity will respond accordingly." She gathered her datapad and walked toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. No one spoke as she left the chamber. Outside in the corridor, Elena activated a small communication device. She spoke just 2 words into it. "Garden party." Across the galaxy, on hundreds of human worlds and thousands of human ships, those words were received and understood. After 73 years of careful preparation, humanity's true response to galactic civilization was about to begin. The council delegates congratulated themselves on their firm but fair decision. They had put the humans in their proper place. Order had been restored to galactic civilization. None of them suspected that they had just made the biggest mistake in the history of the galaxy. Dr. Sarah Chen looked up from her quantum entanglement array as her communication terminal chimed softly. The message was simple. "Garden party, Phase 1 begins now." She had been expecting this call for 3 days. Ever since Ambassador Vasquez had delivered those final words to the council, every human in the galaxy had been waiting. Now it was time. Sarah walked to her research station on Titan Base. The facility orbited a gas giant in the Kepler system, far from any major council worlds. Her team of 12 humans had spent the last 5 years working alongside ethereal collective scientists on breakthrough communication technology. The aliens thought they were partners in the research. They were wrong. "Pack everything," Sarah told her assistant, Dr. Marcus Webb. "We're leaving." "All of it?" Marcus asked. "The quantum processors alone will take 2 days to safely remove." "All of it," Sarah confirmed. "Leave the basic research notes for our ethereal colleagues. But the real work, the important discoveries, that comes with us." In the Titan Base conference room, Professor Veltar of the Ethereal Collective was analyzing Sarah's latest report. The human had made remarkable progress on instantaneous communication across galactic distances. Such technology would revolutionize Council civilization. The ethereals were already calculating the profit potential. What Professor Veltar did not know was that Sarah's progress report contained only basic theoretical concepts. The actual breakthrough had happened 6 months ago. The real research data was already encrypted and stored on portable drives that would soon be leaving Council space forever. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on hundreds of worlds. Captain Marcus Torres stood on the bridge of the UNS Determination, flagship of the human peacekeeping fleet. His ships had been patrolling the Outer Rim territories for 8 years, keeping pirates and raiders away from Council trade routes. The work was dangerous and thankless, but humans did it because it needed doing. "Signal all ships," Torres commanded. "We're implementing Maintenance Protocol 7. His communications officer, Lieutenant Park, looked confused. "Sir, that's a full fleet recall. Are we abandoning our patrol routes?" "That's exactly what we're doing," Torres replied. "Send the message to Council Command. Human peacekeeping forces withdrawing for scheduled maintenance and crew rotation. Estimated return indefinite." The message was polite and professional. Council Command acknowledged it without concern. Human forces always seem to need more maintenance than other species' fleets. It was another sign of their primitive technology. Within hours, 37 human warships began their journey toward the Galactic Rim. They left behind patrol routes that had been clear of pirates for 3 years. The Council would learn about the raider problem soon enough. On the industrial world of Vega Prime, Chief Engineer Janet Rodriguez was having a very different conversation with her alien supervisors. "I don't understand," said Supervisor Kexalon, a 6-armed being from the hegemony. "Your entire maintenance crew is resigning?" "All at once." Janet nodded politely. "We've all received opportunities for advancement in the outer territories. Better pay, more interesting work. I'm sure you understand." "But the atmospheric processors need constant adjustment," Kexalon protested. "The gravity generators require daily calibration. Without your team, I've left detailed instruction manuals," Janet said helpfully. "Everything is documented. Your own engineers should be able to handle the work easily." What Janet did not mention was that those detailed instructions covered only basic operations. The humans had been quietly fixing design flaws in the atmospheric processors for 3 years. The gravity generators had a critical software bug that human technicians corrected every single day. Without human intervention, both systems would fail within weeks. But those problems would not be Janet's concern. She was already scheduled to depart on the next transport to the Rim territories. The exodus was happening everywhere, but it was so gradual that most aliens barely noticed. Humans simply faded away. They finished their current projects, submitted their resignations, and departed for better opportunities elsewhere. On research stations, human scientists packed up their breakthrough discoveries and left behind only basic notes. In military bases, human support staff completed their contracts and declined to renew. In hospitals, human doctors and nurses transferred to underserved colonies in the frontier regions. The pattern was too subtle for most aliens to detect. Each individual departure seemed normal. Humans had always been mobile, always willing to go where the work was. Nobody realized that they were all moving in the same direction. Director James Wright coordinated the massive operation from a hidden facility in the asteroid belt. As head of Human Intelligence Services, he had spent 20 years building a secret network that spanned the galaxy. Today, that network was orchestrating the largest mass migration in galactic history. Status report. Wright requested from his communications center. Phase 1 is 93% complete, reported his chief of operations. Research teams have extracted all critical data. Military units are withdrawing on schedule. Infrastructure personnel are completing their departures. Any problems? The Zephyrians on Alcyone Station are asking questions about the human maintenance staff. They've noticed some equipment irregularities. Wright smiled grimly. They'll have bigger problems to worry about soon. What about the civilian populations? Evacuating as planned. We're using the standard migration protocols. Economic opportunities, family reunification, frontier homesteading. Nothing that looks unusual on paper. The standard migration protocols had been developed over decades. Humans had always been restless explorers, willing to travel to distant worlds for work or adventure. The council had grown used to human movement patterns. They did not realize that this movement was no longer random. Dr. Chen completed her work on Titan Base 2 days ahead of schedule. As her team loaded the last of their equipment onto a transport ship, Professor Veltar approached her. "Dr. Chen, I am confused by your departure. Our research is at a critical stage. The quantum entanglement breakthrough is within reach." Sarah smiled politely. "I've left all my research notes with you, Professor. I'm confident your team can continue the work without difficulty." What Sarah did not mention was that the research notes were deliberately incomplete. The quantum entanglement breakthrough had not only been achieved, it had been improved beyond anything the ethereals could imagine. But that technology would not be shared with the Council. "Will you be conducting similar research in your new position?" Veltar asked. "Oh yes," Sarah replied truthfully. "I expect to make some very interesting discoveries." One by one, the human transport ships departed from Council space. They followed carefully planned routes that avoided major shipping lanes and observation posts. Their destinations were listed as various frontier colonies and unexplored systems along the galactic rim. The ships were more advanced than they appeared. Human technology had always seemed primitive to alien eyes, bulky, inefficient, unsophisticated. What the aliens failed to understand was that human engineers had deliberately designed their systems to look simple. Hidden beneath the crude exteriors were innovations that would have amazed the greatest minds in Council space. Ambassador Elena Vasquez made her final journey to Nexus. Prime 3 weeks after the Council vote, the official reason for her visit was to handle paperwork related to humanity's new status. The real reason was to deliver one last message. She found the Council chamber nearly empty. Only a few minor officials were present to witness the bureaucratic formalities. Chancellor Zixthera was not there. War Prime Krextel was dealing with some crisis in the Outer Rim. Most of the important delegates had already forgotten about the human question. Elena approached the central platform one final time. Her voice echoed in the vast empty space. "Honored delegates," she began, though only a handful of beings were listening. "I come before the Council to formally acknowledge humanity's new status and to deliver our final statement as full members of this body." She paused, looking around at the largely empty chamber that had once seemed so important. For 73 years, humanity has served this Council with dedication and loyalty. We have built your infrastructure, protected your trade routes, healed your sick, and solved your problems. We have asked for little in return except the respect due to equal partners. Her voice remained steady and professional, but there was something final in her tone. The Council has now made clear that this respect will not be forthcoming. You have decided that humans are suitable only for maintenance work and grunt labor. You believe our contributions are minimal and our capabilities limited. Elena activated a small device. Her words were being broadcast to every human settlement in the galaxy and recorded for posterity. Very well. Humanity accepts the Council's judgment. We withdraw to pursue our own path among the stars. We thank the Council for the lessons learned during our association. She deactivated the device and gathered her papers. "Where will you go?" asked one of the minor officials present. Elena smiled for the first time in weeks. "Out there," she said, gesturing toward the stars visible through the chamber's transparent dome. "There's a whole galaxy to explore, and perhaps other galaxies beyond this one." With that, she left the chamber. Her ship departed Nexus Prime. The first signs of trouble appeared 6 months after the last human ship left. Council Space Mining Supervisor Gextar stared at the readouts from Kepler Station with growing frustration. The massive asteroid mining facility had operated smoothly for 15 years, extracting precious metals from the mineral-rich belt around the system's primary star. Now everything seemed to be breaking down at once. "The ore processors are running at 60% efficiency," reported his chief technician, a hegemony engineer named Vexclaw. "The gravity compensators keep drifting out of alignment, and the atmospheric recycling systems are producing contaminated air in sectors 12 through 18. Gextar's 4 eyes blinked in confusion, but these systems were just maintained last month. The human crew said everything was operating within normal parameters. "The human crew is gone," Vexclaw reminded him. "They completed their contracts and left for better opportunities in the frontier regions. Remember?" "Of course I remember," Gextar snapped. "But they left maintenance manuals. Standard procedures. Our engineers should be able to handle basic equipment care." What Gextar did not know was that the human maintenance crew had been making dozens of tiny adjustments every single day. The ore processors had a design flaw that caused heat buildup in the crystalline matrices. The gravity compensators needed constant micro-calibrations because of subtle resonance effects. The atmospheric systems required daily filter replacements that weren't mentioned in the official specifications. The humans had discovered these problems years ago and fixed them quietly, without bothering their alien supervisors with technical details. After all, what mining supervisor wanted to hear about molecular resonance cascades and atmospheric chemical balancing? The humans just made sure everything worked. Now that they were gone, the hidden problems were becoming very obvious very quickly. 3 sectors away, Communication Director Zelnara of the Ethereal Collective faced a more serious crisis. The quantum mesh network that connected 15 star systems had gone completely dark. Billions of beings were cut off from galactic communication. How is this possible? Zelnara asked her technical team. The network has been stable for over 20 years. The central processing nodes are failing in cascade patterns, reported Senior Technician Carfell. Each failure triggers instability in the connected systems. We cannot determine the root cause. Zelnara accessed the maintenance records through her neural interface. The quantum mesh had been jointly developed by ethereal and human engineers. The ethereals had designed the basic architecture and computing systems. The humans had handled the practical implementation and ongoing maintenance. Contact the human technical team immediately, Zelnara ordered. The humans are gone, Carfell replied. They departed 8 months ago. All of them? All of them? Every human engineer and technician in the entire network. They submitted resignations within a 2-week period and departed for various frontier colonies. Zelnara felt something very much like panic, an unfamiliar emotion for her logical species. They must have left detailed procedures, backup systems, emergency protocols. Carfell transmitted the files to her consciousness. Zelnara reviewed them in milliseconds. The documentation was thorough but incomplete. It covered basic operations and routine maintenance. It did not explain how to prevent cascade failures or why certain adjustments needed to be made at precise intervals. The humans were using undocumented procedures, she realized. They were making modifications to our systems without reporting them. What Zelnara did not understand was that the humans had been saving the network from complete collapse for years. The original ethereal design had multiple critical vulnerabilities. Human engineers had identified these flaws and developed workarounds, implementing them so smoothly that the ethereals never realized their perfect system was actually held together by constant human intervention. On the luxury world of Zephyr Prime, Chancellor Zixathara was dealing with her own growing concerns. 3 of her species' most important colony worlds were reporting atmospheric problems. The terraforming systems are destabilizing, reported Colonial Administrator Pixhara. Oxygen levels are dropping. Carbon dioxide is building up in the lower atmosphere. The biofilters are failing across multiple installations. Have the engineering teams run full diagnostics, Zixathara ordered. They have, Chancellor. The systems appear to be operating according to specifications. But somehow the specifications seem to be wrong. Zixathara felt a cold suspicion forming in her mind. Were humans involved in maintaining these systems? Human technicians provided support services, Pixhara confirmed. But they were just following our designs, performing routine maintenance. Nothing critical. The Chancellor accessed the historical records. Human engineers had indeed worked on Zephyrian terraforming projects, but their contributions had seemed minor. Adjusting air filtration rates, calibrating atmospheric processors, optimizing biofilter efficiency. Simple maintenance work. Now Zixathara was beginning to suspect that the simple maintenance work had been far more important than anyone realized. War Prime. Krextal of the Kethvar Empire was learning the same lesson in a much more painful way. His forces were currently engaged in 3 different military campaigns, and all of them were going badly. The tactical computers cannot integrate properly with our weapon systems, reported Battle Commander Vextal. The targeting solutions are inconsistent. Our communication arrays keep losing signal during critical operations. How is this possible? Krextal demanded. These systems have worked flawlessly for years. The human technical specialists maintain the integration protocols, Vextal explained. They handled the software interfaces between our HFY military hardware and the Council standard communication systems. Krextal's massive fists clenched. They were maintenance workers, code technicians, nothing more. It seems their work was more complex than we understood, Vextel replied carefully. Our own engineers are struggling to replicate their procedures. The truth was even worse than Vextel dared to report. The human maintenance workers had been the only ones who truly understood how to make HFY military systems work, with technology from other species. Without their constant adjustments and updates, the Empire's multi-species equipment was breaking down piece by piece. Worse, the humans had also been providing intelligence analysis that Krextal had taken for granted. Human analysts had an unusual talent for predicting enemy behavior and identifying strategic weaknesses. Without their insights, HFY military commanders were fighting blind. The problems multiplied across Council space. Trade routes became inefficient as navigation beacons went offline. Space stations suffered life support failures as maintenance cycles were missed. Industrial worlds faced equipment breakdowns that their alien engineers could not understand or fix. On Nexus Prime itself, the great space station that served as the heart of galactic civilization, systems began failing in ways that should have been impossible. The gravitational stabilizers are drifting out of alignment, reported Chief Engineer Haxmal to the station administrator. If we cannot correct the problem, we will begin experiencing structural stress in the primary support rings. Run the standard calibration procedures, the administrator ordered. We have, sir. Multiple times. The calibrations hold for approximately 6 hours, then begin drifting again. This should not be happening with properly maintained equipment. The administrator accessed the maintenance records. The gravitational stabilizers had been jointly maintained by a team of engineers from 6 different species, including humans. The human contribution had seemed minimal. Routine adjustments, minor software updates, periodic component replacements. Contact the human maintenance team, the administrator ordered. Sir, the human staff departed 4 months ago. All of them? All of them? Every human engineer and technician on the station. They completed their contracts and accepted positions in the frontier regions. The administrator felt a growing sense of unease. 1 or 2 departures would be normal. But the entire human staff? At the same time. That seemed like more than coincidence. As reports continued to pour in from across Council space, a pattern began to emerge. Everywhere humans had worked, systems were failing. Not immediately, not catastrophically, but steadily and inexorably. Equipment that had operated flawlessly for years was breaking down. Procedures that had always worked were suddenly inadequate. It was as if the humans had been quietly holding galactic civilization together, and now that they were gone, everything was slowly falling apart. Chancellor Zix Thera called an emergency session of the Council Security Committee. The great chamber that had once seemed so impressive now felt ominous and uncertain. We are facing systematic infrastructure failures across multiple sectors, she announced to the assembled delegates. Communication networks are failing. Transportation systems are breaking down. Even our own space stations are experiencing problems. What is the cause? Asked War Prime Krextal. We are investigating, Zix Thera replied carefully. But there appears to be a correlation with the recent departure of human technical personnel. The chamber fell silent. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The crisis had been building for 3 years, but it reached a breaking point on a quiet Tuesday morning when Nexus Prime's life support systems failed. Catastrophically, emergency klaxons wailed through the corridors of the great space station as atmosphere vented from 7 different sections. 300 beings died in the first hour. Thousands more were evacuated to emergency shelters while repair crews desperately tried to contain the damage. Station Administrator Kelvash stood in the emergency command center, watching his carefully ordered world collapse around him. The holographic displays showed red warning indicators spreading like a disease through the station's systems. How did this happen? He demanded. These systems have redundant backups. Triple fail-safes. This should be impossible. Chief Engineer Haxmal looked exhausted. He had been working for 36 hours straight, trying to understand the cascade of failures. The atmospheric processors have been operating outside normal parameters for months, he reported. Microfractures in the primary circulation network. Pressure regulators drifting out of calibration. The backup systems tried to compensate, but they were already stressed from previous incidents. What previous incidents? Haxmal transmitted a data file. 17 separate system failures in the past 8 months. Each one was contained and repaired, but the cumulative stress on the backup systems was significant. Kelvash reviewed the failure reports. They painted a disturbing picture. Critical systems throughout the station had been breaking down with increasing frequency. Each failure had been fixed according to standard procedures, but the fixes never seemed to last. Problems that should have stayed solved kept recurring. Where are the human maintenance records? Kelvash asked. The humans completed their contracts and departed 18 months ago, Haxmal reminded him. They left standard documentation for all their procedures. Show me. The files appeared in holographic form around them. Kelvash studied the human maintenance logs with growing alarm. The records showed constant, subtle adjustments to almost every critical system on the station. Pressure tweaks, timing modifications, component replacements that seemed to follow no standard schedule. They were making changes to our systems, Kelvash realized, modifications that aren't in the original specifications. It appears so, Haxmal agreed reluctantly. But the changes seem to have been improvements. Without them, our systems are reverting to their baseline performance levels. And those baseline levels are inadequate? Haxmal's silence was answer enough. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place on hundreds of worlds. The Celestian garden colonies were dying as their terraforming systems collapsed. The beautiful flower worlds that had taken centuries to cultivate were returning to barren rock. Billions of sentient plants were withering and dying. Colonial Director Philana stood in what had once been the grand botanical gardens of New Silest, watching the last of the crystal flowers turn brown and crumble to dust. How long do we have? She asked her chief botanist. At current rates of system failure, 6 months until the atmospheric processors shut down completely. After that, the botanist made a gesture of helplessness. Our people cannot survive without the managed ecosystem. What about the emergency protocols? The emergency protocols assume basic terraforming systems will continue operating. Without atmospheric management, soil conditioning, and climate control, even our emergency shelters will not sustain life for more than a few months. Philana accessed the historical records, searching for any clue about how their world had been maintained for so long. The answer was disturbing. Human agricultural specialists had been quietly managing critical aspects of Celestian terraforming for decades. They had maintained genetic diversity in the plant populations, managed soil chemistry, and handled atmospheric balancing, all while officially serving as agricultural consultants. Now they were gone, and the Celestians were learning that their beautiful garden worlds had been far more fragile than anyone realized. The economic situation was becoming equally desperate. Galactic trade had declined by 40% over 3 years. Shipping routes that had operated safely for centuries were now plagued by pirates and raiders. Captain Hixalon of the Merchant Syndicate stared at the tactical display showing his convoy under attack. 5 raider ships had appeared from nowhere, targeting his cargo vessels with devastating efficiency. "Where are the peacekeeping patrols?" he demanded of his communications officer. "The nearest council patrol is 47 hours away," came the reply. 47 hours? The system used to have peacekeepers on permanent station. The human peacekeeping forces withdrew 3 years ago, his tactical officer reminded him. Council forces have attempted to maintain coverage, but they lack the efficiency of human operations. Captain Hixalon watched helplessly as the raiders disabled 2 of his cargo ships. The pirates moved with practiced coordination, clearly familiar with these hunting grounds. They had probably been operating here for months, picking off merchant vessels one by one. Before the human withdrawal, such attacks had been unthinkable. Human peacekeeping fleets had maintained a reputation for swift, decisive response to piracy. Pirates had learned to avoid systems with human patrols, because humans had an unpleasant habit of actually catching them. Now the human fleets were gone, and the raiders were back in force. War Prime Krextal was facing even worse problems. 3 of his military campaigns had collapsed completely, and a 4th was teetering on the edge of disaster. Worse, separatist movements had erupted on 6 different Kethvar worlds. Taking advantage of the Empire's military weakness, the Vegan rebels have seized the capital city, reported Battle Commander Vextal. Our forces cannot coordinate properly. Communications keep failing. Our tactical computers cannot process the combat data efficiently. Krextal slammed his massive fist on the command table, leaving a dent in the metal surface. How can this be? We are the greatest military force in the galaxy. Our individual warriors remain superior, Vextal agreed carefully. But our ability to coordinate large-scale operations has been compromised. The humans maintained the integration protocols that allowed our various systems to work together. They were technical support staff. Nothing more. Perhaps, Vextal said, their technical support was more important than we realized. The truth was even worse than Vextal dared to say. Human intelligence analysts had been providing strategic insights that Kethvar commanders had taken for granted. Human logistics specialists had coordinated supply lines that kept Kethvar armies fighting. Human communications experts had maintained the networks that allowed rapid military responses. Without human support, the mighty Kethvar Empire was discovering that its military was far less mighty than it had appeared. Chancellor Zix Thera called another emergency session of the council. The great chamber that had once hosted representatives from 47 species now held only 23. The others had withdrawn from active participation, focusing on their own survival as their worlds faced cascading failures. The situation is becoming critical, Zix Thera announced. Multiple member species are facing existential threats. Our civilization is fragmenting. What are our options? Asked the representative from the hegemony. We must find the humans, declared War Prime Krextal. Bring them back. Offer them whatever they want. We have been trying, Zix Thera replied. Our long-range scouts have visited every known human colony and settlement. They report the same thing everywhere, empty facilities, abandoned installations, no signs of recent occupation. They cannot have simply vanished, protested the ethereal representative. The evidence suggests otherwise, Zix Thera said grimly. Human populations appear to have evacuated from all known settlements. Quietly, efficiently, and completely. Where could they have gone? Our scouts report unusual energy signatures from the galactic rim regions, large-scale construction activities in previously empty star systems. But when our ships attempt to investigate, they find nothing. Empty space. No trace of the energy sources detected from long range. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans had not simply moved to new colonies. They had developed technology that allowed them to hide their activities from council sensors. They were somewhere out there, but they clearly did not want to be found. How is this possible? Asked a delegate from the Crystal Hegemony. Human technology was primitive, crude. We saw their ships, their equipment. Nothing they possessed should allow them to disappear so completely. Zix Thera had been wondering the same thing. She had ordered a complete review of human technology assessments from the past century. The results were disturbing. It appears, she said carefully, that our understanding of human technological capabilities may have been incomplete. What do you mean? Human ships and equipment always appeared crude because they were designed to appear crude. But analysis of abandoned human facilities reveals evidence of far more advanced technology than we ever suspected. Hidden systems, concealed capabilities, technology that makes our most advanced systems look primitive. The revelation hit the chamber like a physical blow. For decades, the Council had dismissed human technology as barely adequate. They had assumed that humans were simply too primitive to develop anything truly advanced. 10 years had passed since humanity's silent departure, and the galaxy was dying. Chancellor Zix Thera stood alone in the ruins of what had once been the Grand Council chamber. Half the ceiling had collapsed during the last atmospheric failure. Emergency lighting cast harsh shadows across broken walls and shattered viewing screens. Of the 47 species that had once proudly governed galactic civilization, only 12 still maintained any semblance of organized government. The Zephyrian Empire had shrunk to 3 core worlds. The Kethvar military machine had collapsed into feuding warlord states. The ethereal collective had withdrawn into isolated research stations, desperately trying to understand where their calculations had gone wrong. The beautiful Celestian garden worlds were lifeless rocks, their populations evacuated to overcrowded refugee camps. Zix Thera reviewed the latest reports with growing despair. Piracy was rampant throughout Council space. Trade had collapsed by 90%. Billions of beings lived without reliable power, communication, or life support. The great civilization that had lasted for millennia was ending not with war or disaster, but with simple, inexorable decay. A soft chime from her personal communicator interrupted her gloomy thoughts. Her aide's voice was excited, the first time she had heard such emotion in months. "Chancellor, you need to see this. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected something unprecedented." Zixathera made her way to the observation deck, one of the few areas of Nexus Prime that still maintained full environmental systems. Through the transparent dome, the stars looked cold and distant. But as she watched, something extraordinary appeared. A ship materialized out of nothing. It simply faded into existence as if stepping out of a hidden dimension. The vessel was enormous, larger than anything in the Council fleet. Its hull gleamed with a strange, shifting pattern that seemed to bend light around it. Energy readings were off the scale. "How is this possible?" Zixathera whispered. More ships appeared. Dozens of them, then hundreds. They arranged themselves in perfect formation around Nexus Prime. Their presence both magnificent and terrifying. These vessels bore no resemblance to any known technology. They seemed to be built from materials that should not exist, powered by forces that defied understanding. A communication request appeared on Zixathera's personal display. The source identification made her heart skip several beats. Ambassador Elena Vasquez, representing the Human Federation. With trembling fingers, Zixathera accepted the communication. A holographic projection filled the air before her. Ambassador Vasquez appeared exactly as she had 10 years ago, not a day older, though that should have been impossible. "Chancellor Zixathera," Elena said politely. "It has been some time," Ambassador Zixathera managed. You look well," Elena smiled. "Thank you. I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but we wanted to make sure we had your attention." "You have it," Zixathera said weakly. Around them, alarms were sounding as Council defense forces scrambled to respond to the sudden appearance of the human fleet. "Where have you been?" "We searched everywhere." "We have been busy," Elena replied. "Building, learning, growing. The galaxy is a very big place, Chancellor. And there are other galaxies beyond this one." Zixathera's mind reeled at the implications. Other galaxies? That's impossible. The distances, the technology required. Yes, it would seem impossible using Council-level technology, Elena agreed. Fortunately, we moved beyond such limitations some time ago. The holographic display expanded, showing images that made Zixathera gasp. Vast cities floating in space, each one larger than Nexus Prime. Planets that had been transformed into garden worlds that made Celestian colonies look barren. Ships that traveled not through normal space but through dimensions that folded reality itself. "How?" Zixathera whispered. "The quantum entanglement research that Dr. Chen was working on when we left was just the beginning," Elena explained. "Once we were free to pursue our own path without the limitations of Council oversight, our discoveries accelerated remarkably. The images continued to flow. Humans working alongside beings that were clearly not from this galaxy, technologies that seemed like magic, civilizations that spanned not star systems but entire galactic clusters. You see, Elena continued, humanity never really belonged in your council. We were always meant for something larger. The dismissive treatment we received was actually a gift, though I doubt you intended it that way. It forced us to stop pretending to be less than we were." "Pretending?" Zixathera asked. "Of course. Did you really think our technology was as primitive as it appeared? Did you believe that a species capable of interstellar travel would be satisfied with maintenance work and minor trade roles?" Elena's image gestured and new displays appeared. These showed human installations hidden throughout Council space, research stations disguised as asteroid mines, communication networks operating on frequencies the Council couldn't detect, monitoring systems that had watched every Council world for decades. "We spent 73 years studying your civilization," Elena explained. "Learning your languages, understanding your technologies, mapping your strengths and weaknesses. We integrated ourselves into your infrastructure not because we needed the work, but because we needed to understand how your society functioned." "You were spying on us?" "We were learning from you," Elena corrected, "and protecting you, though you never realized it. The maintenance work we performed, the infrastructure support, the peacekeeping operations, all of that was real. We genuinely worked to keep your civilization stable and prosperous. Then why did you leave? Zixthera demanded. If you were so advanced, if you could have taken leadership roles in the council, why accept our judgment? Elena's expression grew thoughtful. Because we realized that your council could never accept what humanity truly was. You needed us to be inferior. It was fundamental to how your civilization understood itself. You could work with us as junior partners, as useful servants, but you could never accept us as equals. The words stung because they were true. Zixthera remembered the relief many council members had felt when humanity was reassigned to junior status. It had confirmed their assumptions about the natural order of galactic civilization. The vote to demote humanity was not the cause of our departure, Elena continued. It was simply the signal we had been waiting for. Proof that the council would never change. So we activated protocols that had been in place for decades and began our true journey among the stars. Your protocols? The Garden Party Protocol was developed 40 years ago, Elena explained. Every human in council space knew about it. We had evacuation plans, supply caches, hidden research facilities, and escape routes prepared for the day when we would need them. The coordination you witnessed was not miraculous. It was the result of careful planning across multiple generations. Zixthera felt a mixture of awe and terror. The humans had been prepared to leave for decades. They had built their own hidden civilization, while appearing to be integrated into council society. The exodus that had seemed so sudden and emotional had actually been the culmination of a plan that spanned most of humanity's time in council space. What do you want? She asked finally. We want to prevent a complete collapse, Elena replied. Believe it or not, we still have fond memories of our time in council space. We made friends among your people. We learned valuable lessons. We have no desire to see your civilization end in chaos and suffering. Elena activated another display. This one showed detailed technical specifications for equipment that could repair damaged infrastructure, restore failed systems, and rebuild collapsed networks. We are prepared to share enough technology to stabilize your remaining worlds, Elena said. Nothing advanced enough to threaten the balance of power in your region, but sufficient to prevent further collapse. Your civilizations can survive and even thrive again, though perhaps on a more modest scale than before. And what do you want in return? Nothing, Elena said simply. Consider it a farewell gift from an old friend. Zixthera stared at the technical specifications. The technology was clearly beyond anything the council had ever possessed, yet Elena was offering it freely. No conditions, no demands for recognition or apology. Why? She asked. Elena smiled sadly. Because that is who humans are, Chancellor. We are builders, fixers, protectors. Even when we are dismissed and insulted, even when we are driven away, we still want to help. It is our nature. She paused, looking directly into Zixthera's eyes through the holographic connection. The council taught us that we were not welcome in your civilization, but you never understood that your civilization was never large enough to contain what humanity was becoming. We needed to leave not because you rejected us, but because we had outgrown you. The transmission began to fade as the human fleet prepared to depart. Wait, Zixthera called out. Will we see you again? Will humanity ever return to this galaxy? Elena's image flickered. Perhaps someday, when your civilizations have grown enough to understand what we have become, when you no longer need to see others as inferior to feel secure about yourselves. Until then, she gestured toward the stars. The universe is very large, Chancellor.